All right, here we go. Listen up. We are back with another episode of the Construction Mentor Podcast. My name is Ike. I am your host. You can always follow me on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. What are we here to do? We want everyone to know that the construction industry pretty much is the place to be. There's no better opportunity to work hard, get paid for it, and provide for your family. If you're already in this industry, we want to give you the tools, make you aware of the opportunities that are out there, how to make yourself better, how to take your career to the next height, make more money. And one topic that I haven't been able to touch on has been health. About, I don't know, maybe a year ago, I touched on mental health, the crisis in the construction industry. Uh, Let me just say it straight. We look like shit in the construction industry. At least we do in America. So I came across Benchin Bricky. He is from the other side of the pond, but he's jacked. He's funny. You got to go check out his content at Benchin Bricky. And how you doing?
Hey, yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. That's a nice intro. Thanks for the nice welcome. But yeah, so I say, like you say, I'm a funny bricklayer from the UK, and I'm also passionate about looking after myself as well. And yeah, like you said, it's just the same in the UK as well. People don't fucking look after themselves in our industry, so we're sort of I'm on like a bit of a crusade to just sort of change people's perceptions of the fact that you can be in construction and sort of look after yourself and try and inspire a few people along the way.
Yeah, it's the common thing that I hear, and I've heard it my whole life from, I grew up, every one of my family's in construction, elevators, pipe fitters, carpenters, whatever. And they all talk about how, oh, my job is my workout. I'm too tired. I can't do it. By the time they get home or whatever. And it just clearly doesn't show because I mean, I think the stat in the States is that 75% of construction, or 78% of construction workers are overweight, 25% are obese. I mean, I know you guys probably think that all Americans are fat, but is it that bad over
not
there?
not
Is it
not all.
3 out of
Uh,
4?
it's I mean I wouldn't say the perception would be that bad, but I think we would perceive it's a lot worse over
So it's not
there
that
than
bad.
it is
What would you
here.
say? What does your eye test tell you? Is it half?
What is it in
Is it
terms
a
of stats
quarter?
of like what it would be like on site in the UK?
Yeah.
Um, I wouldn't say it would be that high. But you probably are looking at the sort of 60 to 70% range of people who don't look after themselves, are overweight, eat terribly, don't exercise outside of work. And yeah, like you say, there's a massive notion of the fact that people go to work and that's their training, and that's their exercise for the day, and that's all you need to do. And like, yeah, I really, 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 really disagree with that. It's not enough. And yeah, just trying to get people to realize that. And if you're working a physical job and you're not sort of training to sort of enhance it, to me it's absolutely baffling. Like, if you look at a sports person, they're always training themselves physically to be better at performing in that sport. And that's the way I look at it. So the fitter and stronger I am outside of work, the better I'll perform in work. And it's crazy, like it's just crazy that people don't have that perception, and they think that going to work and doing what is sort of the same thing repeatedly for years, and your body just doesn't get that stimulus it needs to do anything. So yeah, you're not getting that training effect, and that's why, like you say, you walk on most sites and people do look like bags of shit. They don't look in good shape. But I feel like in the UK, it slowly seems to be changing. Like there seems to be, like, as you walk around sites now, you still got the fat fuckers, but there's people who look in shape now as well. So it is changing slightly. I don't know what it's like in the US for that, but I feel like it is slowly something that's changing in the UK.
So, I mean, you're a brickie, right? So that's
Yeah.
masonry work, whether it's block or red brick or whatever that may be. And if you look at your content, I mean, you're always carrying around, 5-gallon buckets. You're carrying around wheelbarrows or just heavy equipment, whether it's either heavy equipment or, a ton of material. Your veins are popping, you're vascular, you're looking good. Was it always that way? Like, how old are you, and when did this become the way for you?
Yeah, so I'm 32 now. So I'm in my early 30s. Yeah, no, it definitely wasn't always that way. I've always played sport since I was quite young, so I've always been sporty, athletic. Getting into my late teens, that did get caught up in sort of the era. of like drinking a lot. I had a few injuries, which meant I couldn't play sports. So I did put a lot of weight on at that time. So yeah, it's a bit of a. If I think back to the shape I was in that stage, it's a bit scarring for me. But kind of, so I
So
did
you
go to
went you
university.
went you went from so you went from normal kid, athletic, playing sports, and it sounds like you're about to say you went to college and then you went right into the trades from there.
Not quite as such. So just to kind of give you an overview of like what it was. I did go to uni or college, as you guys call it. Um, and then at uni I put on quite a bit of weight because I got injured, I couldn't run. I had a sort of nerve injury. Put on a shit ton of weight actually, and then obviously the culture with like college in the UK is pretty similar to the US, where you're just getting pissed up all the time drinking. So it's not
Yeah.
good for the belly drinking that much. So yeah, I put on quite a bit of weight. Um, Kind of got rid of the injury, and then I started to get back into the sports then. And then yeah, that sort of the weight came back off then, and then I sort of got introduced to strength and conditioning whilst I was studying, and that was a game changer for me in terms of sort of my physical strength and physical appearance. Like that really turned the tide. And then that's also what I sort of pursued career wise after that. At that point, so at the time, I was playing rugby. So I know you do play a bit of rugby in the US, but yeah, I was playing rugby. I was doing pretty well at that. So that was the focus, was playing rugby, studying. I got myself into good shape at that point, and that was probably the point that the sort of the roots of what I stand for now, physically, etc., were sort of
Mhm.
formed. So that was about 2021 at that point, and yeah, I was in great shape at that age, really, and strength wise, like I've never been able to get back to the levels I was at that age. So I was very very strong at that age. Um, and then yeah, so I played rugby. I played back in the UK. I played a bit in Australia as well, and sort of training and was just part and parcel of my day to day. And I got into the trades a bit later on at sort of 23, 24. So what? Yeah,
So
that
when
sort of
let me can I ask you when you were that young and you were playing sports and you went from athletic to drinking and fat to
yeah.
then back to athletic again, young guy in your 20s. I mean, were you also still drinking? It's just the only difference was that you were very active.
Yeah. I was still drinking, and I would still have a drink now. Like I wouldn't pretend I don't. It's just about balance. Back when I was very overweight, the balance was all wrong. But once I sort of got myself back into a good level of shape, I just found, and this is a big thing to try and get into people's heads, is you don't need to necessarily not do some, the fun stuff like have a drink every now and again, but it's just about balance. And I've just always been good at getting the balance right ever since that point, so that I can sort of do those things, every now and again. But the main focus is just looking after myself, and just sort of staying at that level. There's never been a time in my life where I've cut out having a drink, or I will eat foods that people would consider not good. I'll have a takeaway or takeout, you guys call it, don't you? I'll have that every now and again, but it's just like balance is it that is that it's not an everyday occurrence. It's not necessarily in every week, even every month. It's just something that I'll do every now and again. But yeah, it's all about balance, and I just got the balance right after that ever since, really. Um, and like if sometimes from that point to now, I would have got maybe a bit bigger in size, and then thought I need to lean down a bit, and then I just sort of just take it
Mm.
as it comes with that sort of approach, and I'll bulk up a bit or cut down. It kind of just depends on where life's going at that point and how I'm feeling. I don't put too much pressure on it.
So
Um,
I think I want to talk about your ability to do that and what that was like as you came up through your 20s, but talk about so you were at uni as you guys call it, right? You're at college
yeah,
and then you
yeah, yeah,
leave and you said you went into the trades at like 23, 24. So
yeah.
was it being a brickie, being a mason right away? Was it something else? And why not another career? What was it about the trades having a college education that made you still pick a trade?
So I guess for that answer with me, it's a bit unique because I'd have to go back to my family are all bricklayers. done it my
Mhm.
whole life. My dad's a bricklayer. I've got uncles who are bricklayers, and I kind of grew up not wanting to do it. I was like, I'm not going to be a fucking bricklayer, and that's why I went sort of. I did initially go down the academic route, and in the UK, like you, when you're at school, you do heavily get pushed to go in to uni. You like, the trade route is never really an option that you get put in front of you. So it was always like, you're doing
Mhm.
quite well in school, so let's go to uni, let's go and do and that's sort of the road that I followed up until that point. And then I kind of, at that early in the early 20s, I was like, I did all the studying, got the degree, and come out, and I was like, what it was kind of like, what's next? Because the options weren't there that you thought were there. Um, and then I just kind of just made the decision. I was at the right. I don't know what. I can't remember what made me want to take that decision, but I was like, right, I'm just gonna go be a bricklayer. Just gonna join the trade. I'm in a different mentality now at this point in my life. I've done a lot of
Mm.
other cool things, especially with rugby and traveling and stuff like that. So I was like, that's it. I'm just ready to do this now. And I kind of went in head first, but I had to start at the bottom as an apprentice. It wasn't like, I went in and was just straight as a bricklayer. I was just in as an apprentice, and I learned
Is
pretty
it uni
quick.
do they have unions over there? Do they have
No,
unions
no,
over
no,
there? Is that a
not
thing?
really.
Like,
This
yeah.
is this when on a lot of my content, when the guys from the US comment on it, I always get comments about unions and stuff like that, and I have no clue what they're talking about, because we don't have things like that here. We don't have that sort of like protection, and for like most people like that we work with, everyone's self-employed, so you don't get that sort of protection as
Right.
like you would in, if you were employed or that sort of thing by a company. Everyone's sort of self-employed, so
So
we all.
is this a family business, or is it you all
Yeah,
work at the same company?
yeah,
Is
yeah,
your whole
yeah.
family
So
works
it's
there? Is that
just, yeah. So I work with, um, for my dad, basically for my dad's company. My mum does the finances. My brother works for us as well. So yeah, that's what
mm,
I've been doing for the last, what we on, 8 or 9 years now. Um, so what I do is, obviously I'm a bricklayer. I'm laying as well, but I run as a working foreman. I'll run the sites that I'm working on as well. So
mm.
that's sort of where I am with
So
that at
how
the
many
minute. Yeah,
so you started as an apprentice doing the grunt
yeah,
work, doing the dusty stuff and everything that people
yeah.
didn't wanna do. Now you're running a crew. How often, this is 10 years later or 8 years later, how often are you actually, laying brick? And if you are, then
Every
why would you
day,
do it?
every day. My job is to build, and it's to run. So it's pretty full on. Like, it's a lot to, I'm having to think
Mhm.
about a lot. We've got quite a few people working on our job as well, in terms of like the masonry side. So, but yeah, it's about running the sort of the job on behalf of the company for the main
Mhm.
contractor of the job, making sure it's smooth. But then I'm also building as well within my own sort of crew. Um, but yeah,
Mhm.
at any one point, we've had up to 30 people on the job just for us, for our company. So there's a lot of bodies to sort of manage, and you're basically working with the contractor to sort of navigate the routes and make sure all the sort of standard stuff like materials, etc., and create plans and just put
So let me
people.
ask you that. Let me ask let me ask you this. So, and I apologize for cutting you off because I know you're talking about basically your role as the leader, right? So you basically get
Yeah,
everybody set up and you're delegating, you're dictating. You're almost like the quarterback on a football field, my kind of football
yeah,
field, not your kind of
yeah,
football
yeah.
field, but you're a quarterback, right? Where you're delegating to everybody, you're commanding everybody, but you do have the ball in your hand, right? Um, Talk about your ability to lead in that situation. Do you think that your physical prowess, do you think that your athletic ability or presence, like, does everybody know you're the alpha dog just because of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
physical
Well,
stature that you have and you maintain for
I
yourself?
don't, I don't have any. Yeah, I've been running, say, the job I'm on now, for example. I've been running it for years, and I know the job inside out. And no one could run it better than me. I mean, I do believe that a physical stature is important when you are trying to lead, and
Mhm.
it does help, whether it's a conscious or subconscious thing with people you're working with. I think if my dad always told me to, shoulders back, chest out, and whatever you're doing. And it
Right.
and if you physically got the stature behind you, I do think it makes a difference. You know, there's certainly times where it'll make no difference, and you're sitting opposite someone on a table with a suit on who, you know, it's irrelevant to how big your biceps are. You know, they're talking
Yeah,
finances,
right.
and you know that's not going to save you in that situation. But out there, you know, on the tours with the rest of the lads, you know, it does. If you're physically out there, as well as any sort of aspect of society or normal life, you know, it does help to be in shape, no doubt.
Yeah,
Um,
I think, if you picture a crew leader and, somebody shows up and they're a fat slob, they got stains on their shirt, their shirt's untucked in, their ass is hanging out because their ass is, they're just, pants are down to
yeah,
their knees or whatever it is. Like the way you look and the way you carry yourself, the way you present yourself is a reflection of your competence and it's a reflection of how much you care. And I
yeah,
wasn't suggesting that, you walk around like you're the shit, like you're the man because you're in shape and other guys aren't, right? Like that wasn't the point. Um, but when you're looking to be led by somebody or you're looking to have a presence in a room or command attention, I do think that it matters. Like
yeah.
I absolutely think that it matters. So so that's great. Now, from the time you were an apprentice to now, and I know that you probably don't want to share what you make now, but what does a Bricky over there get to start like as an apprentice? No experience. They come in and they're just like, hey, I want to work really hard. I want to learn.
You're going to be on minimum wage, which is like it depends on your age bracket basically over here now. So like if, being a bit older, you would earn more than say a 16-year-old. But if you come in as a 16-year-old, which is what
Mhm,
most apprentices would do over here, or maybe 18. Not a lot of people. Basically, in the UK, most people will finish like the first part of school at 16, and then you would go on to the further
mhm,
education till 18. So most people
mhm.
they're gonna come in at 16. They're not really gonna come in at 18 because if you're gonna stay in school for the extra 2 years that are not
Right.
compulsory, you're gonna go and do something academic or something different like that. So and then you're only looking at maybe sort of 50 to 60 pound a day. And I'm not going to try and convert that to dollars for you quickly, but it's not a lot. It's minimum wage, and you're
Yeah,
going to
I could
have to
tell
be
you.
on.
So that's like 70-80 dollars a day here. So
Yeah,
that'd be like $400 a week.
yeah, so it's not a lot, but what I try and say to my apprentices that come in is that because they all love to moan about how little they earn, and I have to hear it every week, and I'm just saying, look, you're 16 years old, you still live at home with your parents, and you're earning money, you're already earning money, and
Mhm,
you're also learning a skill that's going to pay you very well at some point. Right now, it doesn't seem great, but just remember that your friends who are still in school, they're not earning, they are going to end up in debt because most of them will go to university and end up in massive amounts of debt. So you're not acquiring any debt right now. You are building a pot of money slowly, um, and you're also learning a very valuable skill that will inevitably just keep helping you in the future. And that's what I try and like get into their heads. And that's kind of the mentality I
mhm,
had at the start was like, yeah, this is a bit shit now. I'm doing work that I don't really want to do, but ultimately you can see the end goal. And in terms of what you say about like what a bricklayer earns in the UK, I mean, a good bricklayer should be earning. It ranges based on where you are in the country, but a good, well, let's just say an average to good bricklayer should be earning between 50 to 60k, and then the good ones you're earning 70 to it could be at 90, and that's just as working as just a self-employed bricklayer. It's not even your company as such. Like you can sub it out to someone out who owns a company, work for them on sites, and that's the kind of money you can be earning. So, it's
So if
good.
you're if you're good at if you're good at your job, right? And 80% of people think that they're better, or 80% of people think that they're above average, right? So by definition, most people are not
Yeah,
correct. But,
yeah,
you said 80, 90K if you're good. That's not even a crew leader. That's not a project manager. That's not a superintendent of some kind. That's just you're good. You're good at what you do.
yeah. You just
That would
you
be the
just
equivalent
yeah,
of that would be the equivalent of 118,000 US, which is double the average salary in the US.
yeah. So the way I always say to the apprentices, like, obviously when you're trying to give them that little bit of motivation, is that you're working towards a job that in the UK puts you, your earnings puts you in the top 10% of earners, because that's what it does. Like, if you're earning, if you're half decent, you're in the top 10% earner. And that's the kind
Right.
of, it's also this message that I try and pump out on my socials a bit. And because when I put out the sort of funny videos, the reactions I get from people who aren't in our
Right.
industry are always like, he's on minimum wage. What does he know? And I always just sit there laughing, reading them, thinking, you just don't have a clue. You just don't have a clue. Like, I'm not minimum wage, I'm far
Well,
from it.
and then y you take it a step further than that, right? And so your good guys are making that, and then I just named a bunch of other positions that companies have, but what's the owner making? If you wanna start your own company, you're making more than that.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah,
now my next question would be, when I think UK, I think everything's old. I think I'm from Boston, if you know anything about Boston, but Boston's like probably the closest city that we have when you look at buildings to something in Europe, right?
yeah.
In other words, a lot of things are made out of brick. So is that what most structures are like in the UK? Is there like a lot of brickwork? Is it block work? What is that? What's
Yeah,
the
it
demand
it,
like?
it
And
kind
is
of
there not enough brickies to go around?
yeah. So yeah, firstly, that yeah, it also depends on where you are in the country. Some parts of the country love block work and then have rendered buildings everywhere. Some like brickwork more. Um, where I sort of live in the southwest is there's brick everywhere. We travel around a lot
Hmm.
to different cities as well for work, because it's not necessarily always local. So different cities and different regions have different styles, and you can drive places and see the sort of difference in how we're building stuff. Um, what was the second question you asked? I can't remember what it was now.
So yeah, so it sounds like depending on the area, you have more brick buildings or less brick buildings, especially in the
Yeah,
southwest of the
yeah,
UK,
yeah.
which is
Sorry,
where
yeah.
you are,
So
in the bottom left
sort of
corner.
depends where you are.
But is there a shortage? Like, how many brickies are there for like how many brickies are needed? Is there
Yeah,
a long
no,
line of people
yeah.
waiting for brickies to come work on their job?
There is, so there is it's kind of we've gone through a couple of different stages where a couple of years ago you couldn't find a bricklayer, you just couldn't find them. You were looking for them, the work was there, and you couldn't find them. So there's definitely a skill shortage in the industry. And I know that I've seen one of your videos where you talked about this, about like the shortage and how many people are going out to what are coming in. I've seen that video, and it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's a massive big problem for us, is that they're just not bringing the volume of people through that needs. I think there's something like the average
Mhm.
age in the UK is like between 50 to 55. It's pretty old.
Right.
Um, so and there's not enough people coming out of school wanting to be a bricklayer. So there is. I mean, it's not quite. We're not quite at it yet, but in this sort of next 10 to 15 years, I think we're going to see big problems in terms of there's just going to be not enough people, because the UK is just wants to build. There's millions of houses that have got to be built. Obviously all the commercial projects. There's so much work that needs to be done. But just not enough people that are going to come through. And but on the other hand, at the minute, because in the UK we're sort of we boarded on like a recession over the last year. Um,
Mm.
People have been sort of, the phone lines have been going just crazy, because people are just ringing up trying to find work, and there's now a shortage of work for people. So we've kind of gone through two different stages within quite a short period of time. But yeah, I know people who are working for us and they've had to go and be like an Amazon
Mm.
driver. um, so
Mhm.
we were at a point earlier this year where we were just happy that we were just still working, that we still had the trowels on our hand. And it was very, like, it wasn't as smooth and as much demand as we'd liked on the site. It got quite slow and stuttery, but we were just happy that we were still there going, and we knew that it would, we just needed to grind that sort of period out. And now it is starting to pick up a little bit, which is good. Sort of the economy sort of stabilized a little bit.
Yeah,
So
I think that, a lot of people challenge me and they say, "Oh, the economy's gotta be good and you can get laid off and yada yada." And it's like, well, you still gotta be good at your job. Right? And if
yeah,
there's
I
not
think
enough
like
people in even a good economy, like you still gotta be good. And when that does, the best way to stabilize your job and make it through a hard time is to be one of the better ones because it's going to be they're going to trimming the fat is the first thing that happens, basically,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, definitely. That the good people are the ones that will ride through it, and they'll come out and they'll sort of be okay at the end. So it's just sort of like, it's just the way I always like look at anything is, if you're gonna, whether you're a bricklayer or you're doing whatever, if you're gonna do something, just be as literally the best you can possibly be at it. Just, well, whether it comes to the gym or whatever it is you're doing, just try and be the best at it that you can possibly be, and you won't go far wrong, I
Mhm.
don't think.
All right, that's a perfect segue. I want to get back to the working out. I want to get back to the health, okay?
Yeah,
Because that was awesome history of how you got here and things that you went through, and what the opportunities like over there. And I think that people in the U.S. will find it very interesting, just to hear about the market a little bit, like what's going on over there.
yeah.
So, why can you work out but other guys can't? Like, what's the routine? Are you even married to a routine? Is it the morning? Do you leave at lunch? Is it at the end of the day or before bed? Like, when do you get your physical fitness in? And what does that look like?
So yeah, yeah. So I always train after work, and I know a lot of people struggle with that. It just suits me, and I'm used to it. I don't. It doesn't bother me. But one like rule I have is that I always go straight from work. I'll never take myself home, because whether, no matter how much I love the gym and I'm addicted to it, if even like someone like me, if I go home and give myself that little opportunity after a long day just to sit down for 5 minutes, that's quickly when things, you don't go. You just take you go, oh, this is comfortable.
Mhm,
So I just kind of create that routine where it's a non-negotiable. I go straight from work. I have my food on the way home just to make sure that I've got some energy, make sure I'm hydrated, and I'm going straight there. So that's it. I get the work done
mhm,
straight after work. I have had periods where I've trained before, and it just didn't personally work for me very well. I didn't feel like my body had woken up enough by the time I'd gone in, so I didn't actually used to lift as much
mhm,
weight as I did after work. I felt like my nervous system was asleep still, and so I just didn't like it. But I know a lot of guys who do, and it works for them, and that's great. But I think it's just about finding what works for you and what you can sort of, it fits in with your lifestyle. And whilst
mhm,
I do have a set program and I follow, I'm actually, one thing that does help me, which people might surprise, is being quite flexible with it. In that things pop up in life, and you can't, ideally in an ideal world, I go Monday, Tuesday, I rest Wednesday, and I'll go in Thursday, Friday, because I like to give myself a weekend off. I like to just have a weekend clear, so that I can enjoy family
mhm,
time, me time, because we're working very hard in the week physically, by going to the gym and going to work. So that's sort of, but if something pops up and I have to move sessions around or whatever, I just give myself the flexibility. As long as in the 7 days of that week I get those sessions in, and just having that flexibility works for me. Um, I think some people can be too rigid as such, because when something goes wrong or something pops up, they can't adapt very well, and then everything just falls apart. And then that's when people like fall off the wagon with their diet and stuff like that. They might have one bad meal, and then their week will fall apart, and they've ruined all their progress, or they miss that gym session, and then they just, it affects their mentality so much it can just ruin their whole week in terms of keeping to the gym, and then
right.
people fall off the gym. And it's just about, when you've been doing it for as long as I have, you learn just to be flexible with it. I don't train
And
around.
do you mind me asking, do you have kids?
So I've got one on the way. She's due in December. My partner's got a couple of kids as well, but from a previous marriage. But yeah, so I've had a minor introduction to like managing that sort of lifestyle with it, which,
Mhm,
yeah, it brings a lot of challenges. But I still think that, I know people with kids who will be like, there's no chance I could ever train. The kids keep me too busy. And on the flip side, there's people who will train and they'll make it a non-negotiable. And that,
mhm.
it's kind of, to me, and it's how I want to look at myself as when I'm going to become a parent, is, what kind of role model am I going to be? You know, uh, that's what I'd say to people who are parents who struggle to find the time to go to the gym, is like, just think about, what your kids are seeing and the type of role model you'd like to be. So, but it's about, if you go from someone who trains not at all, an hour a week is better than zero. 2 hours a week's better than zero. It's just about finding something and doing something, even if it's just half an hour when you can at home, doing home workouts, even if it's just going outside for a 20-minute run. It's just about sort of finding something. There's always something you can do. Um, there's always enough time. There is just enough time to do all those things. So people who have got kids just
Listen, you touched on a few things there. Um, number one and first and foremost, I don't know about how it is in the UK, but I can tell you in America, if you are a fat parent, you probably have a fat kid, right?
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
somebody just messaged me the other day, and they said, I don't know how to find time. How do you find the motivation? And then, everyone knows the growth content, right? It's all about discipline. It's not about motivation, yada yada. What it's really about is that it's about purpose, right? And now
yeah.
you are now a role model to kids in your house, and you're about to have your own. Which congratulations, by the way.
Thanks.
But if you don't want your kid to be fat and you don't want them to be unhealthy, the best way to do that is to not be that way yourself. Your kids look up and they see you, and they are most likely to emulate you, right?
Yeah,
So take care of yourself, make time, and don't be so rigid that when something goes wrong or something comes up, everything falls apart. I would actually argue that having an office job is a little bit harder to make the gym work, because usually in the field, the trades have a little bit more of a rigid work schedule. Like if it's 6 to 2 or 7 to 3 or whatever it is, when it's time for tools down, it's time for tools down. Right. So,
yeah,
whereas like in the office, you got meetings that run late, and you've got, God knows what can come up. Somebody calls you in the middle of the night. The management hours aren't really rigid, right? Like it's kind of a 24/7 job depending on the situation.
yeah,
That's why I have two kids, a 2-year-old and a 4-month-old, and I have to get it in at 4 in the morning. Otherwise, I'm not going to get it in.
yeah,
Um, so I think that was a really good perspective. Now, are you when you leave? And I want to get into what goes into your body, right?
yeah.
So when you leave, are you taking a pump? Are you taking a supplement, a coffee? You snorting sugar? Like what's getting you? Do you need a pick me up? Do you need a pick me up to get from the bricklaying into the pump and iron?
Yeah, all I generally have is I'll have a protein bar and I'll just have an energy drink, like a zero sugar energy drink, just to get some caffeine in, and that's
Mhm.
it. And that's just it. Just works. Just I don't want to eat too much before I start exercising.
Yep.
I don't actually like to eat too much during the day in general, because as soon as you start eating anything heavy, especially when all the your blood's going to the places you don't want it to be. It's going away from all your muscles and your tissues to your gut, so it can
Mhm.
start digesting. So if I'm doing anything physical, I want all my blood and all my energy to be at the muscles where I need them. So I don't actually eat too much during the day, and then I'll make up for it in the evening with sort of getting the calories in. But just before gym, yeah, I just have an energy drink with some caffeine. It's quite high in caffeine, and then a protein bar, something that's just easy to eat, um, not too many calories, and that's sort of enough to get me by. I
Mhm.
don't really take much in terms of supplementation. I never really have. I'll have creatine,
Mhm.
um, and some whey, and that is literally it. I've never really sort of complicated it too much. I like to get most of
Yeah.
the
So
stuff in.
creatine is linked. A lot of people think they think it makes you puffy, and they think that it adds water weight. It actually, the benefits are more in muscle recovery, and yeah, maybe hydrating the muscles, but um, it's it actually does a ton for your mental health and for your ability to sleep
Yeah,
and to get in rhythm with a good sleep cycle. So from the beginning, like, what's the meal plan? What's the meal plan like? Are you doing meal prep? And are you having the same thing every day for in the morning and every day for lunch? Like I eat every two
yeah.
hours. I I have like almost a full meal every 2 hours, but that's just me.
Yes. So like during the week, like it's a lot more like set than it would be say at a weekend. But I don't eat breakfast for starters, which some people might find crazy. I don't. So I can't eat that early in the morning. But I get up and I go
Mhm.
and walk the dogs, and I've got to leave the house by 6:30 in the morning. So it's just too much to do. I'm not particularly hungry at that point. And my body feels quite good after sort of fasting for that period. And I'll have my first meal at 11 when we'll stop. And then I've eaten the same
Wow.
same thing Yeah, so it's quite. I sort of always tend to have like a 14 to 15 hour fast from the evening before. And I
Wow.
feel
Okay.
better. I don't feel as sluggish doing that. And to get to that point was just something that I played around with. I've always been quite open to sort of experimenting with different ways of like eating. And like you say,
Mm.
I've done the whole eat every 2 hours, but in our job that's difficult, and I can't really, I can't be doing
Yeah.
that. And so that didn't work. But yeah, so like I said, I don't really like to eat too much during the day anyway. But I'll have my first meal at 11, and I've eaten the same
Mm.
meal for about 6 years, and I just have an apple, banana, and 4 or 5 chicken thighs, cooked chicken thighs, warm them up, and that's what I eat for my first
Oh,
meal.
okay.
I,
So hold on. 4 or 5 chicken thighs. That's a lot. That
yeah,
that's I I wanna highlight the importance of that though. So, no matter what you do, whether you're spacing out meals or you're eating, big meals, protein intake is huge. You have to have protein
yeah,
intake. It curbs your appetite. It doesn't make you want to snack on other things, especially things that aren't good for you. So, if I were to, and there are times like today, actually, today is a good example. Right after this and then all my meetings, I will be walking to the steakhouse across the street from the hotel and I'll probably get 2 steaks. That's just me. Right. So, if you're going to have a meal, protein's key.
yeah,
It's key for curbing the appetite and it's key for muscle recovery and muscle building. You should be having, I bet I could guess how many grams of protein you have a day.
yes,
Are you having like 200, 220?
yeah, maybe a little bit more, maybe more sort of 230 to 240. That would be sort of my target.
Ah, right. All right. So an apple, banana, and 4 thighs, 4 or 5 thighs. Anything else?
Yeah, yeah, no, that would be it, and then just get the fluids on. Yeah, and that'll be it. And like I said, then I'll go through to the end of the day, the working day, and I'll have that sort of the protein bar with the energy drink. I'll go to the gym, and then I'll come home, and by that point, I'll be absolutely ravenous. Then that's when the sort of hunger will hit, and I'm like,
Yeah.
body is like nutrients, calories, protein, get it in. So and I'm not really in the evenings. It's definitely not something that is really rigid in what I eat. I just eat meals that are home cooked. Um, Try and eat as
Mhm.
much home cooked meals as possible, and that are all sort of single ingredient foods. So there's nothing processed in it. There's nothing overly complicated. The food that you put in there is the food that it says it is, and just sort of and whole foods. Protein is the sort of the main nutrient that I'm focused on in every meal. Like it's got to be high and dense in every meal, and then I'll sort of have a carb source with it, and that can vary from just rice to pasta. Um,
Yeah.
and then some. To be fair, the one weakness I do have in my diet is the fact that I'm not very keen on vegetables. So I probably don't eat enough of that if there is one weakness. But I will try
Got
and
it.
use like a vitamin or something to like make up for that. Um,
Got it.
yeah, and then sort of after that later in the evening, I'll make like one of my favorite snacks is like a Greek yogurt protein, whey protein, some dark chocolate, blueberries, and just mix that all in. And that is just like a solid sort of snacky meal that I would call it. That would just keep that hunger away until the next day and do it all again. I will be more flexible weekends. I sort of I'll eat differently, but like the principles are all there. Um, I don't necessarily count calories. I would only count calories
Mhm.
if I was trying to really cut properly. Um, and right now at this stage in my life, like, I'm not really interested in doing that, because it's not really. You look great, but you feel like shit. So um,
Yeah.
I'm happy. Yeah, I'm just happy like with where I am, like, physically able to perform. I feel good in the gym, um, and I'm not. So I don't really necessarily count calories. I'll just check in every now and again to make sure that sort of the foods I'm eating repeatedly, I'm making sure that I'm hitting that protein that I want. Because obviously, if you're training sort of strength training or hypertrophy work in the gym, if you're not eating your protein, like you are leaving so much on the table. So that's sort of the main one that I would focus on with the training, just making sure the protein's there. And I know that as long as I'm covering sort of the different foods that I need, that I'm going to get the micronutrient intake I need. And that's so that, like I said earlier, I try and get all of the nutrients I need in from food. So don't really not massively keen on taking too many
Mhm.
tablets. and stuff like that. And I would recommend that everyone focuses on diet first before trying to stack in a load
Sure.
of
Yeah,
supplements.
you shouldn't. Yeah, it's called supplement for a reason, right? You're not
Yeah,
supposed to.
exactly.
It's supposed to be a little add on. It's supposed to be a little side thing to kind of boost it up. So you hit on a couple of things there that I do. Now I eat every 2 hours from the time that not from the time that I wake up, but I'll wake up, I'll do a cardio if I can, either a bike on my while I'm working on my laptop, or I'll go for a run on an empty stomach. I come back, I have 6 eggs with strawberries and blueberries. Then 2 hours later, I have a protein bar. Then 2 hours after that, I have some sort of meat with a fruit. And then 2 hours after that, I have a shake with some creatine. So that's like the first supplement that I've taken. And then I'll have dinner, whatever my wife makes. Now, exactly what you said. Whole foods, if it comes from the ground or it's something you can go pick out of a field, then you have it. In the States, in America, and it's always a joke that when we go over to, your side of the pond, um, pasta affects us differently because our pasta is very processed. It's basically all
Yeah,
shit and it's not good for you. The only carb that I ever really have, and it's only when my wife serves it to me, is rice.
yeah,
Um, that's it. And like, I'm just not going to force her to like not cook me the rice so, or cook me something else. So I'll eat the rice. And then before bed, I'll have a protein shake with some magnesium. Right. So I split up that protein shake into 2 parts of the day just to get a steady flow of protein going. And that works
yeah,
for me. Right. But, again, I try not to have supplements. Sometimes I take a pump for a workout. But the really key supplement that I take, and I don't know if you do anything for your sleep, very curious to hear about your sleep pattern or if you do anything to enhance your sleep. I take magnesium before bed, and that like totally helps me sleep. I can definitely feel a difference in my muscle recovery. What's your opinion on sleep, and do you do anything for it?
yeah. I have taken. You did used to take a zinc and magnesium supplement before bed. I'm not at the minute, but it's definitely something that does help with sleep. But yeah, sleep is huge, and it's something you see on site so much. People just who are just literally function off such minimal sleep, and it's if you trying to take your training seriously and you're not sleeping well, like it's one of the first points you need to be looking at is why am I not sleeping well? Because that's when all the magic's done, really, in terms of like when the growth that you want. If you're putting time into the gym and training, it all happens when you're asleep. So I've never really I've been lucky in the sense that I've never really had an issue with sleep. Um, I get to sleep very well. I sleep well when I'm asleep, and it's very rare that I have a disturbed sleep. I mean, I do so much physically that I just by late evening I'm just done. I just need bed, and I'm just my head like I'm just gone. Um,
Yeah, right.
I'm up early as well, so by the time I've woken up and through to that evening, I've been awake quite a long time. Obviously, everyone always wants the buzz 8 to 9 hours. Do I always get that?
Hmm.
No, but the quality is pretty good on the whole. Sometimes like I say, you've got kids and life just doesn't enable you just to be able to sleep for 8 9 hours. Things to do, but I just as long as I know that my sleep quality is good. And I know the effects of, say, for example, if you've had a weekend of drinking or anything like that, and I've not that's the only time I will not sleep very well. And I can always feel the aftermath of that in the gym that following week. I just
Oh yeah,
like it's just the weights just don't move as
big time.
well. And that's when you really notice all of the effects of like the dehydration and the lack of sleep, and that's when you'll realize how much sleep like is powerful to your performance is when you've had a weekend of not a lot of it, and then you go and try and do the same thing that you did last week on a weekend of good sleep or whatever, and that's when you realize how important it is for your performance. So, but yeah, it's
Can you talk about not just in the gym, but at work, the effect of alcohol? I'm sure you probably drank a lot more when you were on the job, not like literally on the job, but while you were during the work week or even on the weekends, you were probably drinking a lot more in your mid 20s, late 20s, compared to now. What do you
yeah,
say to the, because I know over here, the trades drink and they drink a lot. I think the
yeah.
average tradesman drinks 5 drinks a day or 5 drinks a night. Um, how does that affect their ability at work and outside of work?
Well, it's I see. I if I've ever drink before work, I mean, I wouldn't do it because I know how ineffective I will be the next day. And in a job where I'm like that's earning me my income is my performance that day. I don't really tend to mess around with it too much. With
Mm,
I could probably count on one hand since I've been doing it how many times I would have actually drank a night before and gone to work. I know
right.
that it's just going to impair everything that following day. I'm just going to be, sort of ghosting through the day, trying to get survive. And to be honest, I don't know how some people do it. I don't really, it's one of those things that I do wonder sometimes is how people, function the next day. And they do manage to do it somehow. But I think people get so used to, they get so used to just drinking the night before and they'll have a few drinks and think it's not, and they get so used to how their body feels that they don't realize how like poorly that everything's sort of running until maybe they take a bit of time off and then they feel better and then they start to work starts to become a lot easier. And but yeah, there's no way, you will get people on sites who will argue that yeah, it's fine, I can get through it, I can get away with it. And it's just no way that the human body will not function as well, especially doing anything physical like we do. um well,
Right.
if you're drinking the night before and drinking a lot, or yeah, like you say, every now and again you will have a weekend with with friends and that, and I'm at a point now where I'm not feeling great for a half a week after, and I'm still feeling a bit ropey on a Wednesday,
Yeah.
and that's where
Yeah,
I'm at
same.
now. So
Same.
yeah,
So, you know, I know that anybody that I know that there's one common theme that everybody has in their own path of personal development or personal improvement or whatever you want to call it. And that's that they drop alcohol out of their life almost entirely. I
yeah,
didn't drop it out entirely. I still have a drink, here or there, but I went from drinking Thursday through Sunday, like and drinking hard, to maybe I have a couple drinks a month, like maybe. And it's for all the reasons that you just said, both at work, outside of work, in the gym, as a father, whatever that may be. So, one of the as funny as your content is, and as much as I love you spreading the word about the opportunity about being a Bricky, I do think that you are a great source of inspiration for a lot of people in the trades to make a change in their life, because it's very clear that 75% at least, and that's just the fat ones. I mean, there's also the alcoholics too. So I would say maybe 85-90% of the guys in the states could make a change to make their life better. It sounds like it's probably in the same realm, maybe 70, 80, 85% over there. For someone in the trades that wants to turn their life around and make a difference, what advice would you have?
I think one of the best things I ever got taught when dealing with anything like this is, deal with the elephant in the room first to leave the mice till after. So look at the obvious things that, and most of the time the things that are holding people back are obvious. Like you say, it's the drinking daily after work. It's
Mhm.
like it's just start. It's small steps. A lot of people try to change everything in one go, and when someone's built those habits over a long time, like, and then you just try and rip them all out and you just try and start fresh, it's like that's a big step to make. And when something's and that, it's over, people ingrain these habits over a long period of time, don't they? So if you get to that point where you've spent years doing something, it can take maybe not as long, but it's not gonna the rebuild isn't gonna happen quick. So you start off with small things, and it's just cutting alcohol out, looking at what you're eating in terms of, I wouldn't say change your diet 100% through the week and just go from what you were eating before to something completely different. It would just be about slowly removing things, slowly, and then introducing better habits in terms of food and what you're eating, and just to take your time with it. And like I said earlier, if you don't go to the gym or you don't exercise or you're not doing any sort of anything outdoors as such, is to start small. Whether it's it starts to go from 1 or 2 walks a week outside of work. You start maybe with one gym session a week and just slowly start building it so that you're able to like sustainably do it. It's all about being sustainable with it. If you can't do, if it's
Mhm.
something you're not going to do in a year's time, you need to look at why. And for most people, they just go hell to leather. They'll go from nothing to training, trying to go to the gym 3 or 4 times a week, training like a hero, and they'll change the whole diet, and inevitably people would end up just crashing, and then they fall off. You see it all the time with people who you start and stop these things, and they're yo-yo dieting all the time, and they're going to the gym for a period, and then they're not. It's just about slowly sort of building habits that you're going to be able to do in a year's time, and you're going to be able to build on for the next year. And like I've been training for since I was 16, so I'm looking at half my lifetime of
Mhm.
training and sport, and so it's not something that it's happened overnight. And I've made mistakes doing it, and things that I wouldn't do, and but a lot of things that have taken a long time to build. So I think most people aren't prepared to strap in for this sort of thing. Um, they want it. Everyone wants a short term fix, right? And I get it. Like they want results quick. They want to go from fat to shredded in like 6 weeks, and it's just never going to happen. Like you just got to be able to. You need to be able to lock into the fact that this is a lifestyle you have to sort of change to doing. But it does form your identity as well. And you've just got, so if you
Mhm.
want to become something, you've got to act like it, and that is just slowly changing the things. And it's just looking at what you're eating, like say prioritizing sleep. Looking at, it's not hard to find information on how to sleep better nowadays. It's not hard to find
Mhm.
information. Like the internet and social media is such, although there's a lot of information, and sometimes it can be hard to pick through what's good and what's bad. Like if you go from a point where everything's not, you're eating shit, you're sleeping like shit, you're not training, like something is better than nothing. And if you just, there is a lot of information out there, but it's information that can be used, and it's just, I think people just like to overcomplicate everything. Just start doing something. Just get out and do something. If you like sport, go and play a sport once or twice a week outside of work. Like just increase things, and then you,
Sure.
you just learn things as you go along. You build it. The things that I know in the gym now, it took me a long time to know them. So don't expect to just know everything instantly, and just enjoy the journey. And just, but also worry about your own journey as well, because one of the worst things of social media in terms of like fitness and health is everyone's always comparing themselves to everyone. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
how do I get like you? Well, are you ready to do 16 years of work from this point? Like, what? Why
Yeah.
compare yourself to me?
Yeah.
Don't compare yourself to me. Like you're at zero in your life. uh, You know, worry about your own self. And people are always, unfortunately, getting sort of images fed through on social media of how they should look, and there's a lot of
Well,
drug abusers and
comparison
stuff.
is
And
comparison is
just,
comparison
yeah,
is the thief of joy, right? And like you
yeah,
said,
absolutely,
now on the flip, you hit a bunch of awesome things, right? Make it simple, simple scales, complex fails. Pick the obvious stuff. Walk today, walk a little faster tomorrow, walk a little longer tomorrow. Maybe next week you jog. You just add a little bit every single day, and don't compare yourself to a you or a me. But here's the good thing: small changes will lead to larger results faster if the fatter
yeah,
you are or the worse things are. You and I, we have to work really damn hard and really make drastic changes to see a little bit of an improvement,
yeah,
right? If you're in a tough spot, you make a few simple changes and you just stick to them, and there's no finish line, like you just said. No finish line. This is a lifestyle commitment. You are going to see the results in a month, in 90 days, in
yeah.
6 months. So you just got
I
to
mean,
stick with it.
that's the best bit about being sort of new to it, is that, like you said, like when you've been training for as long as we have, it's you don't. I'm fighting tooth and nail to get like a kilo extra on my bench press like over a month, and
Yeah.
and it's just
Right.
like, God, you're putting a lot of effort in just to lift an extra kilo, but you wouldn't. But like, yeah, as someone who's new to it, like you're just gonna get all those sort of beginner gains, and it's like it is actually like the most enjoyable period, and especially like if you can lock in for like 6 months, a year and a half, and like, although it seems a long time, it's not. We all know how fast time goes when you do, like,
Mhm.
it disappears in a flash, and if you can just stick to something consistently, like it's amazing where you could be in a year from the point you are at now, if you just sort of you just commit and you stick to it, and like just small changes each day, small improvements. But there's a lot of days in a year, and there's a lot of chance to get better, and you will. There's not nothing inherently special about someone like me, to be honest. It's just the fact that I've just committed, and I've applied myself to it consistently for a long time, and that's the only difference. It's nothing. It's nothing. There's nothing genetically different than me and some people or whatever. It's just about the fact that I've made a choice and I've locked into it, and they haven't. Simple. And that's all the difference between people who are successful in anything, isn't it? It's just the little small decisions that people have made to stick to, and that they're the ones that sort of
Yeah.
build over time.
And the key that we mentioned, maybe a half hour ago is, as long as you have a purpose, that's greater than yourself. That's the best way to stick to the commitment. Listen, I appreciate you coming on. We're coming up on time. Again, it's Benchin Bricky, BENCHIN _ BRICKY.
Yeah.
Go follow him on Instagram. I don't know if you're anywhere else, and if people can reach out to you for advice.
Yeah. It's the same. I'm the same on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at the minute. So my name is the same on all of them, pretty much. If you type that in, you're gonna find me. Um, but yeah, I'm most active sort of on Instagram. It's sort of my preferred platform in terms of like just stories and stuff that posting on that. So yeah, you can find me there. Like I say, I'm really if people message me, especially about this sort of topic that we've talked about today, I always make the effort to try and get back to them and try and help people in some way. So yeah, any questions you can always fire them away on the message, and I will do my best to get back to you.
All right, well, you can't miss him. If you haven't caught on the accent, you'll hear that in the content. And like I said, he's the guy lugging all the bricks around with the tight shirt and the veins. So I appreciate you coming on. We need
That
more
that
people
that
like this in the
t-shirt's a double
construction
XL,
industry.
by the way.
Yeah, there you go. So there's some perspective right there. That was a humble brag. I I'm only in a large, and I don't look that good or that big in a large. So I got some work to do. But I appreciate everybody. We'll catch you next time. This is the Construction Mentor Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or Spotify, wherever you may be, and I'll catch you next time.